Happy Thanksgiving. Today we're going to take a look at the true story of Thanksgiving. The fact that the Pilgrims who came over to the New World because of religious persecution built up an amazing society, and how they were showing their thanksgiving to God for blessing them. We are told that the white Christian Pilgrims stole the land from the Native Americans. That these Pilgrims were so incredibly dumb that they had to have Native Americans show them how to farm, and that ultimately the way that the Pilgrims would repay the Native Americans' kindness was by pillaging their cities and genociding the population. This is false. In fact, I cannot state enough how much this narrative is untrue. So today we're going to actually take a look, before we begin, at Teen Vogue. This is a video that they put out just a few years ago of some young Native American ladies voicing their opinions on what Thanksgiving means to them.
Happy Thanksgiving, America. I'm Donna, and I'm here with my friends to tell you the real history behind this holiday. Growing up, I knew that what they told you in school about Thanksgiving wasn't true. That's not the true story. The true story behind Thanksgiving was, after every killing of a whole village, these European settlers celebrated it, and they called it Thanksgiving. But it wasn't until Abraham Lincoln became president that it became an official holiday.
He ordered 38 Dakota men to be hung for war crimes.
After the sacred holiday Christmas,
We take this time to remember our elders who lost their lives due to what really happened. Usually my mom makes a Native American dish for us, and we pray.
Growing up, I would be kind of annoyed that they didn't know what actually happened on Thanksgiving, and that they're actually celebrating the deaths of many people and many tribes that were lost.
whether it's to give thanks or to be with your family, you should learn how the holiday was established in the first place.
I'm thankful for being born indigenous to this continent.
I'm thankful that I still have my culture.
I'm thankful that my elders kept our culture alive all these years.
I'm thankful to be indigenous, resilient, and alive.
I'm thankful for us all to be able to stand together, stand strong, and stand as one.
Happy Thanksgiving, America.
So even if you open a history book, you are being told a revisionist narrative of the original Thanksgiving. So what was the original Thanksgiving? Well, to understand that story, we have to go all the way back before the Pilgrims are settling in New England to the religious persecution in England. You see, the Church of England was very strict about theology. The Pilgrims differed very much from the religious norms and standards of the day. They were, in fact, Puritans. And for this differing of religious theological ideology, they were persecuted, jailed, fined, or even executed because of their difference in belief and opinion. Instead of suffering persecution in England, they decided to go to Holland. In fact, they settled in the city of Leiden. After a decade, they feared, however, that their children were becoming too Dutch. The society in Holland was very liberal and left-leaning, and so it was really influencing the next generation of Puritans in a bad way. In 1620, they decided to leave Holland, not fleeing, not avoiding religious persecution. They'd already escaped that from England, but to carry on the mission they believed that was bestowed upon them by God. That is, to spread God's glory and establish a new land. This all according to the Mayflower Compact. Now, the Pilgrims were devoutly religious. In fact, the word pilgrim means a person that is religious traveling to another land. We don't bestow this word pilgrim or this title pilgrim upon these people. They bestowed it upon themselves. They understood that the mission they were undertaking would have an impact through generations yet to come. However, the voyage from Europe to the New England colonies wasn't smooth sailing the whole time. In fact, there were a few obstacles and even signs from God that happened upon this voyage. First of all, there were the repeated leaks on the ships and the sabotaging of one of their main ships, the Speedwell, which ultimately would force cooperation between interdenominational Christian groups and even non-religious groups traveling to the New World. William Bradford actually tells of a very interesting story on the voyage over of how a young sailor was repeatedly mocking them and how mid-voyage he ended up dying. Many believe this to be the just hand of God that fell upon this rude, proud, and mocking sailor. Now, the Pilgrims did not eventually land in the place that they hoped to land, which would have been the Hudson River in New York. They were blown 250 miles off course and landed in Cape Cod. It was cold and empty, and in fact, the first winter was quite horrific. Two or three colonists died per day between February and March. By spring, 52 of the 102 original colonists were dead. Now let's take a look at the social experiment that would change this settlement. You see, the colony was almost destroyed by a very terrible economic flaw. 100 years, 200 years, in fact, before Karl Marx was even thought of, before he was ever born or ever thought of his idea of Marxism, the idea of socialism was tried by the first settlers in the New World. You see, everything that the colonists made was pushed together into a central bank and would eventually be laden with debt. They tried communal ownership. This was, in fact, a great failure. The Pilgrims tried this idea of communal ownership for 2 years, from 1621 to 1623. Under this system, all of the colonists pooled together all of their goods and services and labor and evenly distributed it, regardless of how hard they worked. This arrangement led to low food production and extremely low results. You see, socialism is against human nature. When people believe that the community will provide for them, they work less, undermining the character of good people. On the brink of starvation in 1623, Governor Bradford abolished this socialist scheme. He allowed everyone to work their own land and reap their own benefits, leading to a massive surge in production. Just to get an understanding of how bad this socialist idea worked, a man one time stuck his hand into the mud searching for shellfish, but he was unable to pull it back out because he was so malnourished. In fact, he died because he was so malnourished. He didn't have enough food. This is because of the socialist policies in New England. You see, when they got rid of these socialist policies, the families were re-incentivized to work. You were able to do whatever you want with the land, and thus they were very industrious. The shift was so good that it resulted in productivity and abundant food. Bradford condemned communism as an absurd way of work and ideology, and contrary to God's will. This is where we get the original Thanksgiving. They were giving thanks to God that they had gotten rid of these terrible socialist policies and that God had shown them through to a better way, a true blessing. Now let's look at the alliances that forged the first Thanksgiving. After landing in the New World, the Pilgrims came across a strange sight. A gentleman who spoke perfect English, but he was of Native American descent. Samosoed brought with him a man named Squanto, this man who spoke perfect English. The true story is actually quite amazing. It shows how God can use something that was originally meant for evil and turn it into something good. You see, Squanto was a man who had been put into slavery, captured by the Spanish, and was eventually returned to his village after he was bought by some Spanish monks who really trained him to understand Christianity. In fact, he was baptized as a Christian by these monks. After returning to the New World, he found out that his village had been killed because of the plague, and all of a sudden, he is brought before the Pilgrims by the grace of God. He is able to show them how to plant crops properly and helped orchestrate a friendly trade agreement between the chief Massasoit and the Pilgrims. Squanto was a Christian who received baptism from the Franciscan Spanish monks. Squanto was a Christian, not someone who believed in the pagan rituals of the Native American tribes. A Christian sent by the grace of God saved the Pilgrims. In 1621, the Pilgrims celebrated their first harvest day with a 3-day festival in late September or early October. It involved 53 of the surviving Pilgrims as well as 100 Indian warriors who contributed 5 freshly killed deer. However, the official Thanksgiving took place a few years later in 1623, declared by Bradford and it was a civil affair after the abundance achieved that the Pilgrims saw after they ditched their socialist policies and communal works. Now, the story of Thanksgiving is quite amazing. It shows that God really has a hand in what we do. Yet there's a modern distortion, and it's important to take a look at the way that the left has tried to distort the original Thanksgiving. What is the critique? Many describe the original Thanksgiving as a celebration of ongoing genocide against Native American people and the culture. Some have wanted to institute a national day of mourning or an Indigenous Peoples Day. They go on claiming that the holiday was set up to cover up genocide. But you really have to go back to Andrew Jackson's time to get that idea of persecution of Native Americans. Also, who could have known that there were germs back in that time? You see, we hear this a lot, that the white settlers spread the plague to the Native Americans and killed them all off. But how would the settlers would have known? Germ theory wasn't seen until decades, if not centuries later. So going back to that original video of the young ladies who were saying that, Thanksgiving is a racist holiday, why are they talking about the persecution of the Dakota? An uprising that occurred 2 centuries after the original founding of Plymouth Colony. We cannot just lump everything we don't like in American history together and say that it is therefore seen that America is a white, evil, racist nation, because it's not. We live in one of the greatest nations ever to exist, a nation that I believe was ordained by God. There's really no other nation that really had this idea of Thanksgiving or giving gratitude to what we have until America came around. We need to value our nation's history, not disregard it and get rid of it. We will never, ever feel the hardship of the New England settlers. You see, we don't have to go into a new land because of religious persecution. We enjoy a right to the First Amendment. We don't have to travel on a ship for a few months across the ocean and then suffer a bunch of deaths in the New World because it is freezing cold. We, in fact, have travel that is extremely fast. Routes that would have taken days, months, weeks, or even years now can be accomplished in a few hours, if not a few days. We will never understand what the experience of the first settlers was like. We have air conditioning. We have heating. We have plumbing. We do not have to deal with the settling of a new world. We are truly blessed, and we should give thanks to those who sacrificed everything so that we could be here today. Let's continue to preserve freedom for the next generation. God bless you all, and may God bless America. Happy Thanksgiving.